S. Chand presents educational video lectures as per the new UGC curriculum. Difficult concepts made easy. Study anywhere, anytime.
Competition. What exactly is this? This is around us everywhere. Hello everyone, I am Suman. Welcome to S. Chand Academy. Perfect competition is what? This term is relatively new to us, but at the same time we can find it everywhere around us. Perfect competition के बारे में हम और अच्छे से डिटेल में जानेंगे, लेकिन with examples, with many more such competitive terms and with also one such thing जिससे कि हमें पता लग जाए कि मार्केट में exactly perfect competition कहाँ exist करता है. क्या परफेक्ट कंपटीशन हमारे डिसीजन मेकिंग को भी इंपैक्ट करता है? एज अ कंज्यूमर आपको परफेक्ट कंपटीशन की क्या जरूरत है? क्यों चाहिए आपको ये पता होना कि परफेक्ट कंपटीशन है मार्केट में, या क्या एक सिंगल सेलर है, क्या मल्टीपल सेलर्स है, एंड यू एज कंज्यूमर हाउ यू आर एबल टू डिसाइड ऑन द प्राइस. What exactly is that price जिसपे आपको सामान खरीदना है? Let's move on to this. For further information on these topics, please refer to the book by S. Chand Publishing. The link for the ebook is given in the description box. So, perfect competition. In economic theory, perfect competition occurs when all companies sell identical products. So, as we can see in the market around us, इतने मार्केट्स में आप जाते हो, आप क्या देखते हो? क्या एक सिंगल सेलर है जो आपके लिए टी शर्ट सेल कर रहा है, आपके लिए जीन्स सेल कर रहा है? नो, देयर आर मल्टीपल सेलर्स एंड दीज मल्टीपल सेलर्स फोर्स ईच वन ऑफ देम टू डिसाइड ऑन अ पर्टिकुलर प्राइस. As a seller, if I am selling one particular thing, that can be a t-shirt, वो टी शर्ट मैं अपने हिसाब से प्राइस डिसाइड नहीं कर सकती. क्यों? क्योंकि मेरा काउंटर पार्ट या मेरा कॉम्पिटिटर जो है वो भी उसी प्राइस में सेल करे जरूरी नहीं है. So we need to understand that is entirely influenced by the market forces. Market forces क्या होते हैं? Market forces are the one which are determining the price in the competition. So competition here exists to a large extent. Perfect competition in such manner is a term where you get a lot of people at the same place, both as the seller as well as the consumer. So one needs to understand that this perfect competition works in a particular way. What is that? So when we say perfect competition is working, let's just understand this graph. We have a firm as well as an industry in the perfect competition. When we say there is a firm has an equilibrium. What is that equilibrium? एक simple सा concept है, I have a certain demand. Now my demand will be fulfilled when there will be a certain supply. If at all that supply is unable to meet my demand, I cannot reach at the equilibrium or the satisfaction point. Same exists for the firm. There is this marginal cost and there is this marginal revenue. What is marginal? Marginal is addition. As we learned in the earlier classes, जब तक आपका additional cost और additional revenue equate नहीं होगा, आप satisfaction level पे नहीं पहुंच सकते. And that satisfaction point is what is termed as equilibrium. So just try to understand this thing, that when you want to reach a particular point where you need to decide on the price, what you will be paying for your demand, that will be determined by the supply in the market. And that is how we determine the equilibrium price. Now moving on to the next part, what exactly perfect competition is doing? This sets the market equilibrium. So market equilibrium is where your demand is equating the supply. That is the equilibrium point. A firm will always maximize the profit where there will be both demand and supply which are equating. So profit will be maximized at that point. So these things need to be kept in mind. Average revenue should be equal to average cost. Marginal revenue should be equal to marginal cost, and demand should be equal to supply when we talk about the equilibrium level. Now, in this, Let's just understand further that what exactly is perfect competition doing. See, in perfect competition, we need to understand that there is a demand curve which is working. Now, what is demand curve? Demand curve is the locus of all the points where I as a consumer is demanding a particular quantity. There is a price A. Let's say I want to purchase maybe wheat. अब उस wheat का price है maybe 10 rupees 1 kg, 20 rupees 2 kg and so on. But the point is, when I reach at a particular price, let's say 50 rupees or 60 rupees, I'm not willing to pay 5 kgs for 50 rupees or 6 kg for 60 rupees. What I want here is, I as a consumer want to bargain. So if I force the seller, or I kind of convince the seller that if at all there is 50 rupees I am paying, I will be purchasing more, or maybe if the quantity is 5 kg I will be paying less. तो ये क्या हो रहा है? I am convincing the seller. I am trying to reach at an equilibrium where me as a consumer and the seller both are satisfied. So what is happening? Here, this demand curve is trying to apply the same fact. The demand curve is trying to find out that where at all me as a consumer is going to figure out कि ये demand है और ये quantity है और ये price है. इसके according मुझे equilibrium पे पहुंचना है. Therefore, what is happening? Demand curve, which is always downward sloping. Reason is law of diminishing marginal utility, which we had already discussed, and the supply curve, which is ever increasing because we assume that supply is constantly there. And therefore, when these 2 points intersect, at that particular point, both the consumer as well as the seller, they are satisfied. Why? Because the seller is satisfied, he is selling a particular quantity. I as a consumer is satisfied that I am getting the product that I want, the quantity of the product. That means what? अगर मुझे वो 50 rupees में 5 kg नहीं खरीदना था, I wanted to purchase 5 kg but at 45 rupees. But now what I wanted? मुझे 5 rupees का discount चाहिए. But the seller is not agreeing. Seller is saying, no, you have to pay more. Now the seller is saying, I will agree at 47. Seller 47 पे agree हुआ. Me as a consumer, okay, I'm getting 3 rupees discount. So I am also agreeing. अब इस point पे मेरा demand or supply of the seller both are meeting, and hence the quantity is decided and the price is decided, and at that point I will get the equilibrium. So what we are getting? The price at which I am satisfied in getting the quantity and the price at which the supplier is also happy selling that particular quantity. So that is how the equilibrium point is achieved. Now, demand curve of the product in the perfect competition will be downward sloping as it is. There will be no such change. We are not saying that it will be perfectly elastic. Why so? Because of the market forces. In competition, there are multiple factors. There is not only the seller, there is no single seller who's influencing the market. There are multiple sellers. So since there are multiple sellers, nobody can influence. I as a consumer, I'm not influencing, and the seller is also not influencing. What is happening? We are getting a simple demand curve and the equilibrium level where the average revenue is equating the marginal revenue. Now, average revenue and marginal revenue we had already discussed, but for the sake of understanding why at this point these two things should be equal, because the revenue that I'm generating from per unit sale, that should be equal to what? The additional sale I'm making. Again, understand this thing. Per unit sale, if I am adding on to an additional unit, I want to generate one revenue. Something, let's say rupees 10 is my target that I'm getting. Now, the per unit rate throughout should be rupees 10. And if that is happening, only then I can say that I am at equilibrium, because that will set the price in the market. क्यों हो रहा है ऐसा? क्योंकि हर एडिशनल यूनिट पे जो आपकी डिमांड है टू जनरेट द रेवेन्यू, यू आर गेटिंग दैट, एज सिंपल एज दैट. आपका रेवेन्यू जो टारगेट था आपको वो मिल रहा है हर एडिशनल यूनिट पे. जहां आपको लगेगा कि एडिशनल यूनिट पे मुझे तो लॉस हो रहा है या यहां मुझे प्रॉफिट नहीं हो रहा, what you will do, you will start considering the business, you will start thinking whether I should move ahead or I should stop here. So for that sake only you need to think that kahan pe aapka average revenue marginal revenue ke equal hai. So this is the graphical understanding. Now just understand this thing. All the firms receive this price in a perfectly competitive market. Simple funda hai in perfect competition. Whatever we have learned in this particular graph, I am not the one who's determining this. Seller is not the one who's determining this. Who's determining this? The entire market. So in perfect competition, you cannot decide on anything. You cannot determine the price. The seller cannot determine the price. Who are determining the price? You as consumer, the seller as the seller. Both plus the market forces. There can be external forces, the competitors are there, the market forces of, maybe the stock market is there, maybe कहीं पे वॉर है. सिंपल सी चीज, वॉर किसी और जोन में हो रहा है बट पेट्रोल के प्राइसेस इंडिया में बढ़ गए. What will happen? It will impact the price. Simple concept. The forces that are there across the perfect competition, they will be determining the price. So by now we have understood that there are multiple things that are running the market in the perfect competition, and for that the market is also holding the consumer as well as the seller responsible. In the next part, we will understand further that how these things are working in different time segments. There can be short term, there can be long term. What are the different costs that are working, and we will learn how the price is further determined in an accurate mode. And we'll resume after a short break.
Now quality learning is easily available at your doorstep. S. Chand Academy brings detailed lectures based on UGC curriculum as per the New Education Policy 2020. So do not forget to subscribe to the S. Chand Academy and access the wide world of knowledge conveniently sitting within the comfort of your home. Stay connected and keep watching S. Chand Academy. Happy learning!
Welcome back to S. Chand Academy. Before going to the break, we have learned that how this force of demand, the perfect competition, supply, sellers, buyers, how they are reacting in the market. Now in the further part, we'll understand what exactly is the equilibrium price, how we are reaching to that, how the average cost is reacting or how the average revenue is reacting. If these forces are not working in a proper way, how we are going to deal with them and how as sellers we will be making them reach to a certain point. Let's just understand that. So equilibrium of a firm under perfect competition. There are certain basic assumptions that we do while determining that how the perfect competition equilibrium is reached. Unless and until those assumptions are met, you cannot actually figure out that the perfect competition is working. So the price of the product is given. This is one of the most important thing in perfect competition. What happens is the price is given. That means आपके पास एक set price है, let's say 100 rupees for this much amount. 100 rupees for 1 kg tomato. Now the point is 100 rupees तो आपको given है. क्यों? क्योंकि perfect competition है. Decide किसने किया? पूरे market ने. But quantity कितनी आपको sell करनी है? That is your call. Recent past you must have learned that many farmers have earned in lakhs and crores due to the changes in the tomato prices and their demand. So the tomatoes have been called the red gold in some of the areas of the country. How that is happening? क्या वहां कंपटीशन काम नहीं कर रहा था? इट वॉज वर्किंग एंड देयरफॉर द प्राइस वॉज गिवन. नाउ हाउ मच क्वांटिटी द सेलर वॉज एक्चुअली प्रोवाइडिंग, वो उतना तो देगा ना जिसमें उसका बेयर मिनिमम प्रॉफिट है. कुछ लोगों ने थोड़ा प्रॉफिट अपना कम करके मे बी क्वांटिटी ज्यादा सेल कर दिया बिकॉज दे न्यू दैट द मोमेंट दे fluctuate some way or the other, they will have more people towards them. So what happened in this situation? That they actually got some people more than their competitors, and hence the quantity that they were selling was up to them at the given price. Size of the plant of the firms is constant. So we consider generally that the size of the firm is constant and it does not change much, and therefore whatever decision you are making will be accordingly done. Firm faces given short run cost curve. There are certain curves that we have already discussed. They are as per these standards which are there in the market. What happens as the necessary condition? The marginal cost will be equal to marginal revenue. We have shown that graphically as well. Marginal cost or marginal revenue, that means what? Additional cost and additional revenue. अगर आपकी दोनों चीजें कहीं भी जाके मिसमैच करती है, what will happen? आपका additional cost ज्यादा हो जाता है तो आपको profit कम होगा. You will consider stopping the business. अगर cost आपका कम है, still you can run the business. What happens? MC curve cuts the MR curve from below. We'll understand this graphically as well. MC curve must intersect the MR curve from below. Every time the marginal cost or marginal revenue, they are increasing. Definitely they will increase and they form U-shaped curve. But what happens is marginal cost curve जो है वो marginal revenue को from bottom से cut करेगा. How that happens is this. Marginal cost is cutting the marginal revenue curve from the bottommost point. And why this is required? Because आप ये देखेंगे कि अगर marginal revenue आपका straight है, that is perfectly fine, because in the perfect competition price is given. So आपको अपना demand curve straight रखना है so as to get the maximum profit. Marginal cost, initially it is falling, then it fell below the marginal revenue and then it started rising. This is understood that there is the marginal cost which will rise eventually. Why that will happen? Because of law of diminishing marginal utility. जैसे जैसे यूटिलिटी कम होगी कॉस्ट अल्टीमेटली बढ़ेगा, तो मार्जिनल कॉस्ट कर्व तो बढ़ेगा, बट दैट इज अ सिचुएशन which you need to bring in the business in a later stage. First of all, the condition is that it should cut from below. And this is because additional output adds more revenue. And if MC is equal to MR, but the firm finds that by adding to its output, MC becomes smaller. जितना जितना आप आउटपुट ऐड करते जाओगे, इसका एक ही कंडीशन है, अगर आप चाहते हो कॉस्ट ज्यादा ना हो तो आप आउटपुट और ऐड करते जाओ. एंड इफ यू कीप ऑन एडिंग or earning more revenue, what will happen eventually? You will keep on adding more output and that will keep on restricting your cost, and that is what is required in perfect competition in order to sustain in the market. So this is how it works. Now, since it is a perfectly competitive market, the demand for the product of firm is perfectly elastic, as we had seen. Since it is a straight line demand curve which is equal to AR and which is equal to MR, this will be perfectly elastic, unaffected by any other factor. So it is not getting affected. Since it is not getting affected, आपका focus किस पे रहेगा? आपको अपना marginal cost कैसे reduce करना है और marginal revenue कैसे बढ़ाना है. The only way is to adding on to the output. If you keep on adding on to the output, ultimately there will be a point where you will just keep the balance and marginal revenue and marginal cost will be equal to the maximum possible extent. हो सकता है after a certain point, since obviously there is a product life cycle, the product will eventually start declining. After the maturity stage, you will get a stage where marginal cost जो है आपका वो बढ़ जाएगा. But that is a point where the business is able to understand कि इसके बाद मुझे या तो इसका कोई substitute चाहिए या कोई innovation चाहिए so as to sustain in the market. So that is the thing that is required most. So what is happening currently? आप खुद देखोगे अपने आसपास, there is a time when we were totally into our books. Now the time changed. Within a span of let's say 4 to 5 years, people are moving more towards the online modes. Now this is not the thing कि online mode में ही हम stick रहेंगे. There can be some other change. So when there can be some other change, what will be that? How will you sustain in the market? Innovation is the key. adding on to the output is the key. So वो कैसे होगा? When you are aware about the market. If we see, there are certain things which are very much required to be, sustained in the market. There are three things which are utmost required, and how they are determined. There are normal profits, there are supernormal profits, and there is this losses. Losses is obviously a term जो सबको पता है कि लॉस है तो मुझे बिजनेस को शट डाउन करना है, और लॉस एक ऐसी सिचुएशन है जहां पे कोई भी नहीं जाना चाहता. सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग? द most favorable condition is the normal profit. How it is being attained? Simple situation, demand curve, average cost curve और marginal curve आपका U-shaped रहेगा, but marginal cost curve should cut the average revenue from bottom. That means what? Initially आपके revenue से cost, marginal cost कम है, but afterwards the cost start increasing. And the same is happening with average cost curve. Average cost is falling first and then increasing first. Simple. Cost आपका पहले decline हो रहा है. Why? Because your revenue is increasing considerably. But at the same time, when the cost is rising, what is happening? आपका कहीं ना कहीं जो revenue है वो in comparison थोड़ा बहुत मूव कर रहा है, बट स्टिल आप नॉर्मल प्रॉफिट्स अर्न कर पा रहे हो. एंड दिस इज द जोन वेयर द एंटायर थिंग इज वर्किंग, वेयर एवरी पॉइंट, एवरी पर्सन इज टोटली satisfied. So your target as a seller should be to be at this point A where everyone is at equilibrium. So the average cost is equal to average revenue, and it also means that the firm is earning a normal profit. Simple सा condition है normal profit का. Average cost should be equal to average revenue curve. Marginal cost curve should be equal to marginal revenue curve. Loss का situation अब क्या है? अगर आप देखेंगे तो सिंपल सी चीज है, जब आपका कॉस्ट आपके रेवेन्यू से ज्यादा है, ग्राफिकली आप उसको कैसे शो करोगे? ये चीज बहुत ही ज्यादा क्रूशियल है टू अंडरस्टैंड. रीजन बीइंग, आप डायग्रामेटिकली कैसे बनाओगे? बिकॉज इन बिजनेस इकोनॉमिक्स द मोस्ट टेक्निकल पार्ट इज हाउ टू ड्रॉ दीज डायग्राम्स. आई नो दैट कर्व का कॉस्ट कर्व इज यू शेप्ड, बट कितना गैप होगा? क्या ये इसके साथ टच होना चाहिए? क्या ये ऊपर होना चाहिए? When it is touching, that means there is normal profit. But when it is above this, that means there is loss. So you know that the cost is more than the revenue, easily shown in the diagram. If the average total cost is more than the average revenue, that means there is a zone of loss. And this loss वाला जो जोन है, ये वो जोन है जहां पे आपको कंसिडर करना है, आपको बिजनेस को शट डाउन की तरफ लेके जाना है, और यू वांट टू सस्टेन. एंड टिल व्हाट पॉइंट यू कैन सस्टेन, दैट इज टोटली योर कॉल. सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग? द एवरेज कॉस्ट इज मोर देन द एवरेज रेवेन्यू. सिंपल सिचुएशन है, कॉस्ट ज्यादा है रेवेन्यू से, तो आपके पास लॉस है. And the very important part of this entire thing is supernormal profit. So what exactly is supernormal profit? Supernormal profit का एक simple concept है that it is different from the normal profit because it is somewhere more than what you are earning in general. आप एक बिजनेस में सस्टेन कर रहे हो अपने नॉर्मल प्रॉफिट्स की वजह से, बट इफ यू वांट टू सस्टेन फॉर लॉन्ग टर्म by defying your competitors, then you are earning somewhere or the other supernormal profits. How that happens? The situation is where you have a diversified portfolio. You are not into just one business or the other. Hindustan Unilever, बहुत सारे इसके एरियाज है, देयर आर डिफरेंट प्रोडक्ट लाइन, डिफरेंट प्रोडक्ट रेंज. अगर एक में भी उसका लॉस होता है, इट कैन कवर इट अप इन द अदर, and it is also making sure that it is beating the competitors. So this is how the supernormal profit is working, and it is making you sustain in the market for long term. So how it works? Supernormal profit, the most desired position but achieved by very few. Then normal profits, the favorable zone which is achieved by the most, and then the losses where the business needs to shut itself down. So by now we know that what exactly are the different profits and loss zones in the perfect competition where we as business can sustain. And in these situations only, how do we determine the different prices and different equilibrium position? We are able to answer few questions like how the perfect competition is making decisions in the market. In the next section, we will further learn that with movement in demand and supply, how the prices are determined. Again, that is a very real life situation and will be very enthusiastic and eager to know with the real life examples. For further information on these topics, please refer to the book by S. Chand Publishing. The link for the ebook is given in the description box. If you find the video interesting, please like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to press the bell icon for further notifications. Thank you.
All rights reserved. This video has been prepared for educational purposes only. No part of it may be reproduced or copied without the permission of the copyright holder.